to Michigan Muckraker. My name is Michelle. Today is Monday, September 18th of 2023, and I have a lot to share with you, as always, on Industry 4.0 here in Michigan as an example. Here I talk about the big plans, which is United Nations Agenda 21, also known as Agenda 2030, and the World Economic Forum's Fourth Industrial Revolution, also known as Industry 4.0. They're important to everybody, not just Michiganders, but I use Michigan as an example because of everything that's going on here. So today I'm talking about Marshall, a really good article out of the Detroit Free Press that I need to dive into, and then Gotion out of just north of Big Rapids, Green Charter Township, a lot going on there. I'm also hopefully going to get to Shiawassee and the solar and wind initiatives that are taking place, and just how terrible, unfortunately, Shiawassee's solar farm looks, to me at least, and what it means for the state of Michigan. So thank you guys for joining me. If you like this kind of content, please smash like and subscribe if you haven't already. So jumping in here to the events. Today, there's the Croton and Hardy Dam meeting at Newaygo High School. Doors open at 5:30. It starts at 6. So please show up. Understand what's going to happen with the dams all along the Muskegon River. They are either going to sell them or remove them. They're trying to figure out what to do. So we need to know. This is Consumers Energy that's hosting this meeting. So please come and listen to what's going on if you can. Durand City Council meeting tonight, September 18th at 6:30. So if you're in that area, please go check that out. Show that we have strength in numbers opposing these megasites. MEDC board meeting is on Tuesday, which is tomorrow at 10 a.m. Hopefully I can live stream that using OBS. So if you are interested in that, come check it out. And September 21st, Mecosta County Building and Zoning Committee. And then Wednesday, September 20th, is the midweek protest. Now, October 7th, we actually are going to try to get a good showing out there. So we're working on coordinating a good time to go visit our Marshall neighbors and stand in solidarity with them in protesting the Ford Cattle Battery Plant. Looking at the afternoon of Saturday, October 7th. So keep that date in your mind. Perhaps you can come out and show your support for the Stop the Marshall Megasite individuals. They're doing a lot. They're trying to stop, Goliath, basically, as we all are. And so if you have the chance, please go down there, hang out, and show solidarity. Next up, in this area up here by the dams, we have the Big Dam Bike Ride. So just so you're aware, if you see a bunch of bikes sometime this fall, they don't have a date yet, but that's what this is. There's a huge ride. The longest one is 65 miles. So if you're into biking, I'll have the link for the information. The bigdambike.com is the website. So check it out if you like biking, or just be aware of it if you aren't into bicycling. So that way you know why there are so many damn bikes around. This is out of the Pioneer. Would you keep or sell these public lands in Manistee, Benzie, Mecosta County? So I wanted to point this out. I found it. The Department of Natural Resources map of Michigan State managed lands open to public comment is gaining more purple dots representing public input. According to the news release from the DNR, staff already gave recommendations on whether to keep, exchange, or sell state-managed lands in 11 counties. So the DNR is looking to sell land, and we have a chance to give our input for whatever that's worth. I don't know, but I think that we should. If you live in these areas, you should input by October 11th. I will have, again, the link down in the description if you want to look at what lands are being sold and give input. Give you this map really quick. Shows you a little bit better. These are all the different areas in which land is being sold, and we, again, allegedly can give input that they'll listen to. The first people that got to give input were, the staff, the DNR staff. Okay. So Again, you can even see the comments. Most people of all these comments say retain. So we just need to keep an eye out. Are they selling this because of the solar and wind that's going on? There's so much going on here with Megasites for EV batteries, everything Industry 4.0, the semiconductor plants. So, and of course, solar and wind, which again, right now we have like 1,200 acres, and I think most of it is in Shiawassee County for solar panels. But in order to have solar and wind take up the majority of energy used, we'd have to have 200,000 acres of solar and wind. Now, that is to keep up demand for today. So perhaps they think demand will be lower, but just think about that. 200,000 acres of wind turbines and solar panels. I don't think that sounds very green or appealing at all. It sounds like it'd be terrible for the state of Michigan. But anyway, check that out. Give your input on whether or not you want to keep certain lands for the state or if you think the state should sell them. Another thing going on, why you may see low-flying helicopters this fall in Michigan. Michiganders may notice an increase in low-flying helicopters near transmission lines in the coming weeks. Electricity Transmission Company, ITC, is planning to conduct aerial patrols of their high-voltage transmission structures and lines throughout Michigan starting Monday, September 11th, and continuing through October 11th. The Novi-based company's helicopters are expected to be flying lower than usual during these inspections, and a spokesperson noted that there should be no cause for concern for area residents. Inspections are scheduled in more than 70 Michigan counties, during which crews will be assessing steel towers, wood poles, conductor wires, insulators, and other equipment as is required by the North American Electrical Reliability Corporation. So this one already took place, obviously, starting today. We have Clinton. Oh, man. I don't know how to say that. Ionia, Isabella, Kent, Mecosta, Montcalm, Muskegon, Newaygo, Oceana, and Ottawa counties. Sorry for that county. I know it's French, so it's not going to be pronounced the way that I would read it, so I'm just going to skip it. I admit defeat on that word. All right, so good morning, Dragonfly. Thank you very much for joining me. I have hopefully some good things to share with you that you might not have heard. Well, I don't know if it's good news, but I have some things to share. So this I wanted to show, this starts today, September 18th through the 22nd, Sustainable Development Impact Meetings with the World Economic Forum. At the midpoint of the SDG 2030 agenda, progress on many targets such as poverty, food security, health, and employment has slowed. Tighter financial conditions, geopolitical tensions, and the increasing impact of climate-fueled events. This is just bullshit. You can't prove it. You can't verify that. You can just make it up and it pushes your agenda. Anyway, are exacerbating unequal economic growth and prompting questions on the trade-off between immediate security and investment in achieving the SDGs. The trade-off between immediate security and investment in achieving the SDGs, right? So a bunch of people aren't going to have energy, especially not cheap energy any longer. So that's the immediate security that we're going to have to sacrifice in order to invest in achieving these sustainable development goals. What is the outlook for the global economy and what tools are available to policymakers to accelerate progress on the global development agenda? So how can we incentivize and push policymakers who are supposed to be working for us? How can we make them work for the World Economic Forum? That's what they're going to be talking about. It does start at 11:15 to 11:45, but there's going to be a series of meetings all week. I'm going to try to cover as much as possible, record as much as possible. They do have a website or on YouTube. They have a channel, but they don't leave the videos up for long. So I'd like to record them myself. So keep an eye out on that. They are, again, they're trying to influence our politicians. I'm sorry if you hear my dog, Hannibal. She acts like she needs something, but she doesn't. So coming over here, we have the future of hydroelectric in Michigan. And I just wanted to point this out. Late fall, phase 2 of community meetings will begin, which I think that's what we're in right now. In these meetings, we'll discuss and prepare for future dam planning scenarios. Winter of 2023 will follow up. We'll have a follow-up from the second phase of the community meetings to assess potential opportunities that support river hydro communities. So I'm going to keep this down in the description. Keep your eye out on that as well. This is all obviously important for everybody that lives in Michigan that enjoys the Muskegon River, which, again, is the second largest river in Michigan. So I know a lot of people travel from around the state to enjoy this river one way or another, whether it's tubing down the river, canoeing, kayaking. Some parts have boat access. So really important we protect our water for real. Gotion to establish a $2 billion Illinois plant. The China-based manufacturer plans to create 2,600 jobs at the site, and it's set to open next year. This just came out September 13th. The lithium battery maker Gotion will invest $2 billion to establish its first North American factory in Manteno, Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker announced on Friday. The plant is the largest EV battery production investment in the state to date, with plans to employ up to 2,600 workers, officials said. Yeah, sounds familiar, right, guys? We've been talking about this for almost a year. Crazy. China-based Gotion is not building a new plant, but instead will reuse an existing facility, converting a former Kmart distribution center, according to the state official. Well, at least they're doing that and not destroying wetlands, not destroying forests and a whole biodiverse ecosystem in the name of saving biodiversity, mind you. The upcoming plant will produce 40 gigawatt an hour lithium-ion battery cells and 10 GWH battery packs and focus on energy storage system integration. So it is going to pair with the Big Rapids plant. We're going to create 3 out of the 4 of the components to the battery and then ship them over to Illinois and they can finish the job. That's the plan as far as I'm aware. Again, part of the problem with the Gotion and all of these megasites is the secrecy around it and the complete disregard for the concerns of the residents that will be living next to these huge manufacturing sites. They don't care what we say, and it's beyond frustrating, and it does lead to people having outbursts, which, you know how I am. I think that optics is extremely important, but at some point, righteous anger does come forth, and so people do get emotional with these things. And so we have to try to understand our neighbor. Whether or not we would act the same way they would act, that's irrelevant. Why are these people angry? Why are they upset? They are living in an area where they are completely disregarded. Their voice has been not just silenced, but mocked, belittled. They've been gaslit. You know, it's awful what these small communities are dealing with when it comes to their township boards that have been captured by central planners. So again, try to understand where your neighbor is coming from. These things, it's basically establishment versus anti-establishment. The people that want to stop these projects, the whole establishment is against them. The whole central planning power, the MEDC, Eagle. This is just for Michigan. Illinois, same thing, but they have different names for their departments. But they play the same game. Every state is playing the same game. Energy and environmental protection are common challenges. To address them, solar power, wind, and energy storage systems are becoming the backbone of a new energy system that we never asked for, there's no demand for, that was being shoved down our throat by people we did not elect, and accelerate the revolution in the global energy landscape. Gotion High-Tech Chairman Lee Zen said in a statement. I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat that because that's Gotion High-Tech Chairman Lee Zen of the CCP, whose son is the president, CEO of Gotion, who is a young global leader of the World Economic Forum. Energy, this is what Lee Zen said, energy and environmental protection are our common challenges. To address them, solar power, wind, and energy storage systems are becoming the backbone of a new energy system and accelerate the revolution in the global energy landscape. The global energy landscape. There's no America in a globalization plan, okay? It's worldwide, one government. We believe that Gotion's battery technology will help to boost e-mobility in North America and the economic and trade exchanges between China and the US. Gotion will receive $536 million in state incentives, including $125 million from the New Invest in Illinois Fund. So there you go, the New Invest. That's probably the Michigan Strategic Fund, right? MSF, something similar, where they take taxpayer dollars and put it wherever the central planners say. So again, so familiar. $125 million. Is that not what we gave them? The company also received $213 million over 30 years from the state's Reimagining Energy and Vehicles Illinois program. So it's like a renaissance zone, right? 30 years tax-free. Let's see, a 2021 initiative to attract EV and renewable energy companies to the state. The funding comes from the stipulation that the company invest at least $1.9 billion and create 2,600 jobs, paid at least 120% of the average wage of similar job classifications in Kankakee County, according to the announcement. So there you go. The same similar promises. They're still saying in the Only Thing Gotion's Facebook page, which I highly recommend you stay away from because it's a cesspool, but they're still saying 65,000 average, when we all know that the people that are actually going to work on the ground level is 45,000. There's no 60 something that had the higher ups averaged in there to bump it up. But the average worker is not going to make 65,000, and it's a terrible job to work in an EV battery plant. Illinois will fund a new manufacturing training academy near Gotion's plant, as well as offer grants to workforce providers to prepare regional workers for jobs at the site. All that we see here in Illinois are of enormous value to us: an enabling business environment, a supportive state government for the new energy industry, and their highly efficient work, as well as the prospects of the state of Illinois in the coming years, Zen said in a statement. I mean, they're not even, like, Zen Lee is talking about this plant in Illinois. They're not even trying to hide like the Goshen and Big Rapids did. Illinois is not the only state where Gotion is setting up shop. The company announced last year plans to build a $2.3 billion battery factory in Big Rapids, Michigan. So again, Illinois, I know why you have this come into your state, as we do. If you come over here, full list of Democrats and Republicans attending Davos World Economic Forum. This isn't the full list. Whitmer's not on here, but we all know Whitmer went. 44,000 taxpayer dollars paid for her to go schmooze with these globalist central planner elitists. Marty Walsh, John Kerry, Janet Yellen. So when you hear about Janet Yellen being, going on her little EV battery trip and not having success, well, the reason she's doing that. Oh wait, Janet Yellen is the secretary. Sorry. Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary, not the other one. I was getting them confused. Both of them, though, they are linked with the World Economic Forum, but Janet Yellen went in January of this year. So, sorry, little confusion there. So, Mickey Sherrill, which is the New Jersey Democratic representative, and then J.P. Pritzker, the Democratic governor of Illinois, was also on the same panel where he said the U.S. wouldn't hit its inflation target for a very long time. Well, their aim is to bring it back down. Well, yeah, whatever. The whole point is Pritzker was there. Whitmer was there. I don't like Fox News, but it was the fastest one to pull up. Michigan Governor Whitmer headed to Europe, World Economic Forum meeting in Davos. This is why they sold us out to Davos. That's why we are being infiltrated with the Gotion, is because in a global system, there's not China versus the United States of America. We are working together to build a new world order and put the sustainable development goals as the forefront of the plan. Economic development is how they're infiltrating. Okay, it's a different kind of war. We need to be aware that this is war, but it's not what you thought it was going to be. Good morning, Celtic Mum 88. Thank you for hanging out. Merging scandal. Why are we giving $8 billion to Chinese company with communist ties to build a $2 billion battery factory? This comes out of Zero Hedge. This is the first time that I have seen Gotion be talked about on this site. This is a financial anti-establishment site. So they call it far right, but it is not far right. It's just anti-establishment. They just call out the people in power. And when it comes to the people in power, the ones that are the most powerful have more money. So I really like the site, and I'm going to continue to show you articles because it's macroeconomics. Some politicians are taking notice of the absurdity of subsidizing a Chinese technology company, Gotion. The electric vehicle battery maker is linked to the CCP, and it recently linked a deal with the state of Illinois to build a $2 billion battery plant in Illinois. However, the insane size of the subsidies being granted remains to be recognized. On Wednesday, 2 members of the House Select Committee of the CCP wrote to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, imploring her and Congress to take immediate action to stop CCP from exploiting U.S. taxpayer dollars. This is why it doesn't matter that you ask her over and over and over to stop. She's going to continue forward because she doesn't work for us. She works for the New World Order, the World Economic Forum, her friends, okay? She's hanging out with her friends and doing their bidding. Groshut? Is that how you say it? Groshut? Thank you. I appreciate your help. I like to learn, and I know where I'm ignorant, and I want to alleviate that. Usually I do look up exactly how to pronounce it, but because it's a name of a town, it would be a little bit more difficult to find, or rather a county. And thank you. Yes, okay. And so yeah, I don't mind that at all. Thank you for your help. I love when you guys help me out. The letter from Committee Chairman Mike Gallagher and Rep. John Molinar of Michigan, so Wisconsin and Michigan, specifically addressed a very similar Gotion battery production project in Michigan, and the same issues apply to the Illinois project. The letter documents connections between Gotion and the CCP. Gotion High-Tech Co. is a PRC company. By the way, if my dog barks one more time, I'm going to quickly put on this video I wanted to share anyway, and maybe she needs to go out. I'm sorry. That's the thing with doing it live and having dogs. All right. Sorry. Gotion High-Tech Co. is a PRC company that has direct ties to the CCP and state-owned financial institutions. Gotion has been an active participant in the PRC-based version of the Thousands Talent Program, a program the FBI itself says encourages theft of trade secrets and economic espionage. Gotion has established multiple Communist Party units within its operations and has publicly sought PRC provincial government support for its desire to expand its operations overseas. Even when courting major Western investment, Gotion has been adamant about remaining PRC-based control, including requiring that Volkswagen give up part of its voting rights, despite Volkswagen acquiring over 25% of the company. It is perplexing, says the letter, that the U.S. government would perpetuate China's domination of key technology by actively supporting CC-backed companies expanding their foothold in the U.S. market, especially in a crucial sector such as lithium-ion battery manufacturing. All right, well, she barked one more time. I'm going to put this on. It's 3 minutes. And it's really important for this whole entire thing. This individual that's talking helped start Greenpeace. He helped co-found Greenpeace. And this right here is Valuetainment. Highly recommend his podcast.
It took 10 doubles only to go from 5 million people to 8 billion people in 7,000 years. Okay? That to me, I sit there and I say the following. I say Al Gore's full of shit. I say AOC is definitely full of shit. The end of the world is in 12 years, full of shit. But guess what? It is happening eventually if we don't do something about it.
The end of the world?
Not the end of the world.
Or the end of human population growth?
The end of the capacity, what our capacity will be. So then we can think like Dr. Evil.
I can tell you one thing that explains why there went from 4 billion to 8 billion, for example.
Why?
It's called the Haber-Bosch process. It won 2 Nobel Prizes in the early 1900s. It was a formula, a technological process involving very high heat and very high pressure, an extremely complicated process, which was able to combine nitrogen from the atmosphere with natural gas to make ammonia. That ammonia is the basis of all the nitrogen fertilizer being used in the world's agriculture today. It results in at least a doubling of crop production. And that is why we see this news today about Sri Lanka banning nitrogen fertilizer and Netherlands now basically banning much of the nitrogen fertilizer. And this is the biggest threat we have right now to an immediate starvation situation in the world. Food shortage. You hear it said
That's where I'm going.
the odd time.
Yeah.
But the reason it's self-inflicted, this food shortage. Nitrogen, the air has 70% of the air is nitrogen. We could take nitrogen out of the air for the next million years and make fertilizer because it all goes back into the air again eventually. Same with the carbon dioxide.
If we double 2 more times, we got 32 billion people here. We can't have 32 billion people in this in the world.
In other words, we won't double it to 32. If we can't have it, we won't go there.
Why
we can't get
okay,
there.
so let's speculate. Tell me what you mean by that.
What I mean is today, people are getting wealthier. The number of people living in poverty as a percentage of the population is much smaller now than it was 20, 30, 50 years ago.
Yep.
When we reach a position where more and more people are going into poverty and starving to death, we will know we're coming close to that limit. How else are you going to find out unless you artificially reduce the population by cutting off the fossil fuels and by cutting off the nitrogen fertilizer? That's what the real problem is today. I'm saying this is a self-inflicted wound.
Really quick, like he's saying it obviously really well. He's been speaking for a long time, but I just want to reiterate the point that if we were to be left to our own devices, if we didn't have some artificial group like we are right now come in and say, in order to stop from us getting to 32 billion, which the world can't support, we need to switch from fossil fuels, or we need to lower birth rates, and all of these plans these elitists are doing. It's all because they have this assumption that humans need to stop it. When if we were just to let it go naturally, we would stop it in other ways. We would understand that this is how much food we have, and we can't do any more than this. Like, basically, the ultimate resource is our mind, and we haven't been able to use that because we've been suppressed by this plan, this self-inflicted wound that is stopping something from happening that we're just assuming it would happen. We don't even know. Why don't we figure it out? Why don't we figure out what would happen without you assuming and then changing the whole world out of one assumption? And again, this guy's the co-founder of Greenpeace. I am going to listen to this last few seconds, but Truth Seeker, thank you. Public meeting tonight, Newaygo High School cafeteria at 6 p.m. with consumers. Doors open at 5:30. Another reminder, I did say at the beginning, but thank you if you're just joining me.
That we are dealing with right now. And it's a real problem because I can see this, that these powerful elites like Schwab and on down, they want control of the world. They want control of everybody. Now, what do they want? They want fewer people. They think it's already too many, I think. That's what they've been saying in the United Nations for a long time. But the facts don't bear that out because less and less people are living in poverty, and our knowledge of agriculture is growing, our knowledge of genetics is growing, and we're able to grow way more food now than we were then. And food is the basis of how many people can be here.
Right. So going back to the other article, I had to let the dog out and wanted to share that. My dogs are being extremely distracting today. All right, so going back to this article out of Zero Hedge about Gotion. This committee, by the way, was just formed in order to combat projects like Gotion. And I have to say that I'm going to be honest, it makes me a little suspicious. It always does. You're creating another committee, a House Select Committee on the CCP. So it just gives those people a little bit more power. And so I hope they're doing it for the right reasons, but because I doubt it. Okay. But hey, continuing on. Perplexing indeed. Equally perplexing is the sheer size of the subsidies, regardless of the recipient. Gotion is qualified to receive $7.5 billion of federal tax credits over 5 years, as we wrote on Wednesday. That's in addition to $536 million of incentives awarded by the state of Illinois for the Illinois plant, which is expected to employ 2,600 workers. So Gotion will be gifted over $8 billion for a factory that will cost only $2 billion. Holy crap. This is why I'm so glad that the the financial minded are starting to get in on this, because they'll start digging in places that I don't know, and we'll figure this stuff out. But yeah, Gotion will be gifted $8 billion for a factory that will only cost $2 billion. The Coalition for a Prosperous America is a national nonprofit organization representing exclusively domestic producers across many sectors and industries of the U.S. economy. They've been heavily criticizing the tax credit program, which is known as 45X. CPA Chairman Zach Model told us this: "It's unconscionable that the state of Illinois would contribute $500 million and the federal government an additional $7.5 billion to construct a project that will cost just a fraction of that, and to give that money to a Chinese company that is already subsidized by the Chinese government is a serious mistake. China's goal is to dominate the global battery industry, and forcing American taxpayers to unwittingly fund the CCP's ambitions is a direct threat to the U.S. economy, U.S. economic and national security. It's very doubtful Treasury Secretary Yellen could do anything to halt the federal tax credits going to Gotion, as requested by the Gallagher-Molinar letter. The entity that has some power to veto some investments in the U.S. by national security threats like China is the Treasury Department Committee of Foreign Investments, CIFIS. However, CIFIS gave the green light to Gotion's Michigan project, reportedly saying it has no jurisdiction over the matter, and there's no reason to think other Gotion projects are different. The problem instead is that the legislation for the 45X program, Congress must change that, as the Gallagher-Molinar letter says. Authorization for 45X was in the mislabeled Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, and the authorization does not contain the same prohibitions on foreign entities of concern that are in other parts of the Act and other laws, according to J.D. Supra. The entire conception of 45X is that legislation was botched. It was initially estimated that it would cost the U.S. Treasury $31 billion, but now it's estimated to cost as much as $200 billion. It was simply too generous, leading to a frenzy of new battery factory announcements by companies drawn to the handout. Good Jobs First, a worker-oriented policy group in Washington, D.C., has documented the ridiculously oversized tax credits for recent battery plant announcements. Their July report includes this chart where you can see that the 45X tax credits far exceed the cost of many new battery plants, just as Gotion's will in Illinois. Where are Illinois politicians on this? So far, we've seen no reaction from Democrats or Republicans. Where is Illinois' mainstream media? They've reported or criticized nothing whatsoever on the lavish tax credits coming to Gotion for the Illinois project. It's because they're all working for the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. We have to wake up to the fact that we've been captured. Our industries have been captured. Even at the national level, Fox is the only major outlet that has been covering the story. In Michigan, a firestorm of controversy continues over Gotion's plant there. In Illinois, nothing. I'm hoping that can change. I know some of you watching are very close, live right in the same township, Dragonfly. So you're going to have to start making some noise. And fortunately, we have started figuring out some things with the EDRA website and centralizing information. And because this is an information war as well, so there's nothing more important than information, which is why I'm really appreciative of the EDRA site, because it's trying to centralize all of these different MEDC projects going on. So highly recommend you check them out. This is the letter to the Secretary Yellen from Molinar. I'm not going to read the entire thing. I'm just going to go down here. Even more worryingly, it appears that Treasury, as one of the primary implementing agents behind the Inflation Reduction Act, may be offering Gotion large government subsidies for the project. Right. The Inflation Reduction Act has nothing to do with inflation, and it's absolutely a red herring or a Trojan horse for wind and solar. If you look in that, which I am just starting to dip my toes into that, but the Inflation Reduction Act is awful. Just like the Patriot Act, there's nothing more unpatriotic. This has nothing to do with inflation, reducing inflation. Absolutely nothing. It has everything to do with spending more money on the Green New Deal, which again is Agenda 2030. We write to request information regarding Treasury's plan to help fund this billion-dollar Beijing battery project with U.S. taxpayer dollars and the tools Treasury needs from Congress to ensure that it has sufficient jurisdiction under CIFIS to scrutinize such projects in the future. Gotion High-Tech is a PRC company that has direct ties to CCP and state-owned financial institutions, yes. Come down here, and does the Treasury intend to provide any U.S. taxpayer funding or other support to Gotion High-Tech in connection with its construction of a lithium-ion battery manufacturing plant? If so, what is the amount of U.S. taxpayer dollars that Treasury plans to allocate for this project? This has been asked, so I'm going to keep a lookout and see if it's been answered, but I have my doubts with this transparent government that we have. Has Treasury been in communication with Gotion High-Tech in connection with its plans to construct a lithium-ion battery manufacturing plant and possible tax inducements it could receive? If so, please describe these communications. Has Treasury been in communication with the state of Michigan, including but not limited to Governor Gretchen Whitmer's office, regarding Gotion High-Tech's planned project? If so, please describe these communications. Why does Gotion High-Tech's project not currently fall under the jurisdiction of CIFIS? What does Congress need to provide via new forms to ensure these types of PRC projects fall under the jurisdiction of CIFIS? So again, hopefully those get answered. Gallagher out of Wisconsin and Molinar out of Michigan are the ones responsible for that. This real quick reminder, you come here to C40 Cities from the Climate Leadership Group, which Chicago is a C40 city, and these are some of the plans. As usual, it sounds noble in theory. It's about saving the planet, but start looking at some of the funders and partners, and it should set alarm bells ringing. Discover for yourself. I'll leave this whole thread down below. Please check it out. Maybe subscribe if you do the X Twitter thing. I never used to, but information goes to Twitter first, so it's really hard not to go to Twitter, or X, sorry, X. Preferably no meat and dairy by 2030, or otherwise, when you're not a good enough citizen and really can't resist, only low amounts. Get used to it. This is what progressive target 2030, 16 kilograms of meat per person per year. Ambitious target in 2030, 0. No meat. None. That's why you eat the bugs. 0 dairy consumption is the ambitious target. The progressive target is only 90 kilograms dairy consumption per person per year. Come down here, only 3 new clothing items per person per year is the ambitious target. 3 pieces of clothing. 3 clothing items, so not even 3 outfits. I mean, can you imagine? Like, think about these people, we didn't vote for them, and they are demanding that we do with them. Why 3? Where did that number come from? What if somebody likes clothes and they want more than 3 pieces of clothing? Like, I personally, I don't really care. But because I'm not really into fashion like that. But if you were to tell me I can only have 10 books, I'd be really upset. I mean, beyond upset. Who are you to tell me I should only have 10 books? That's what I want to ask these World Economic Forum people. Who the hell are you to say I can only have 3 new clothing items per year? Are you only going to have 3 new clothing items per year? I mean, you might as well say 3 new green and color clothing items only. Everybody wears a green jumpsuit. Come down here. Progressive target 2030. Reduce ownership of cars. Only 190 vehicles per 1,000 people. That's the progressive target. Ambitious target. 0 private vehicles. They say it. 0 private. And this is the C40 cities. Okay. Chicago. Again, I'll show you what the C40 cities are here in the United States. But this is why the battery thing isn't a big deal, because you aren't going to have a Tesla or any kind of electric vehicle. Private ownership is not a thing in this communist world they are trying to create for us. You can still fly once every 2 to 3 years, short distances only. And yeah, it is not, they say it outright. So here is the C40 cities. You come right here. You You have Chicago, Toronto, Washington, Philadelphia, Boston, Miami, New Orleans. I couldn't believe it. So no meat in New Orleans by 2030 if they have their way. Houston, Austin. So it's not just blue states. These are red states. Phoenix, Los Angeles, San Fran, Portland, Vancouver, Seattle. Okay, so there you see, these are the ones that are promising, no cars if we can get away with it. Coming over here, more Gotion news. Green Charter Township clerk distributes anti-recall signs from Township Hall. This is out of the Midwesterner. Video obtained by the Midwesterner allegedly shows Green Charter Township clerk Janet Clark distributing anti-recall lawn signs from the Township Hall on Tuesday. The grainy video, which does not have any sound, shows a person walk in the Township Hall and be greeted by the clerk. That's her last name. Clark the clerk. The two then went to clerk's office where she had several Green Charter Township board signs, and clerk could be seen handing one to the person with a camera. So you do see, again, it's very blurry, but she walks in, or he, I don't know who recorded this video, walks in, and there's the Clark, and you come over here, and there's the Township signs. A campaign finance complaint was filed with Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson Tuesday, alleging clerk and Township Supervisor Chapman committed a 169.257 Public Bodies Act violation, that is, using Township Hall to disseminated campaign signs opposing referendum and supporting recall campaign incumbents. A public body or a person acting for a public body shall not use or authorize the use of funds, personnel, office space, computer hardware or software, property, stationery, postage, vehicles, equipment, supplies, or other public resources to make a contribution or expenditure or provide volunteer personal services that are excluded from the definition of contribution under Section 4.3a. The complaint reads, the complaint says the signs being distributed by Clark were paid for by Citizens for Jim Chapman and are being stored and disseminated inside Green Township Hall. The video showing Clark's alleged use of Township Hall to fight the recall effort is the latest example of the tension and strife that have boiled over in the rural township. Many residents have argued Chapman and other officials have not heeded their concerns over a plan to bring a 1 million square foot battery components facility to the township dominated by farmland. Residents have argued the company's documented links to CCP have made the area susceptible to spying, and the lack of public environmental assessment should be reasons to discontinue the plan. So, last week there was a Green Charter Township meeting. I did go to it. The Green Township actually started their own YouTube channel right here. There's only 22 subscribers. I don't recommend subscribing. I did, and I shouldn't. But you know what? I am going to unsubscribe because I know how to find them without being subscribed. But the comments are turned off. That's always telling when the comments are turned off. There is only one like on this video. And what's really telling is this video is only an hour and 12 minutes. Now you come over here to where I recommend you go, and that is the Midwesterner live Green Charter Township meeting. And the sound is better, everything is better, but this is 2 hours and 12 minutes long. They are missing an hour's worth of public comment. Why? Why did they edit that out? They stop right before, yes. So this right here is the last individual that was able to speak. Everybody else after that on the Green Charter Township was cut off. So do not go over there and watch that, but just know that that's shady to me. Why are you editing out majority of public comment? I highly recommend you check this out. A lot of great people saying valid concerns once again. And yeah, I want to say, because at the end of this, you will see that an individual gets really upset. She lives in Green Charter Township, and this isn't the first time, not this individual, but that this happened, where people are upset. You know, you live in a township where you you think that these are your neighbors, or that these are your neighbors. You think that they have your best interests in mind and that they would do a good job at representing you, especially when the township is so small. But then you have a captured township board that not only doesn't listen to you, but then belittles again your valid concerns and gaslights you. And the leadership quality of Jim Chapman is just atrocious. Like, he's probably the worst leader, one of the worst leaders I've seen. And being in the military, I saw a lot of different leaders and different leadership styles. And he has no style at all. But I just can't believe right off the bat how aggressive he was against, again, his constituents that are worried about this being their next door neighbor, having Goshen as a next door neighbor when they live out in the country and they want to keep it that way. So, complete disregard for the people of his township. He absolutely deserves to be recalled. But there's two things that really bothered me that happened. Well, there's a million things that bothered me, but one, Jim Chapman actually is going to training. So he's been recalled. This whole board has been recalled. Two of the people have resigned now. Two. It just another one just resigned. And so that means that Jim Chapman, who has been recalled, he's essentially been fired, but you have to wait till November. He is actually going to be able to choose two new board members, that haven't been recalled. Like, it's going around the will of the people in this really messed up way. And again, I'm really sorry for those individuals that have health concerns. Obviously, good luck to you with your health concerns. I hope that you can get better, feel better. However, it seems extremely wrong that Jim Chapman is able to fill those two positions when people do not trust him. And so now you're getting two people in there that people might not want. It's awful to think about. And so I hope no more resign due to health reasons to try to get around the will of the people. I'm not saying that's why they did it, but that's what's going to happen. And then the other thing is he basically has the Green Charter Township paying for him to go to training, to a conference, for 2-day conference. And it's $150 a night, I think is what he said, for the hotel. And I don't know how much the training is. And then the other thing, so gosh, this is a whole new thing with voting, and I need to get deeper into it. But so now we have 9 days of early voting, and it takes a whole separate machine. Each township right now is debating whether or not they're going to buy this machine, which they said was $12,500 approximately. Somebody else that I talked to that works for a different township said, no, more like $20,000 plus. So are they lying? Do they just have the wrong numbers? Like, what is going on there? And then not only that, but Green Charter Township said, yes, they want to host their own. They want to pay they said 12,000 approximately, but 20,000 plus, they want to pay that so that Green Charter Township has its own early voting machine. And it has to be separate from the day of voting machine. It's all so shady. It's so crazy to me. Again, we don't trust these people, and yet they're going to be in charge of the voting instead of the county. So that's what this other township did. They just had the county buy the machine, and the county, because the county is getting grants from the government, the townships aren't. But because Jim Chapman just got $500,000 promised from Gotion, or even maybe dropped in the bank account, he's thinking, yeah, why not? Let's do our own voting here. Green Charter Township spending 20 grand. I don't know. But there's just so many messed up things that are happening with this board. And I really encourage you to go to your own board and make sure if you figure out what's going on, because it's unbelievable what these unaccounted rural townships have been doing. And now that we're trying to hold them to account, they really don't like it. And that's part of the reason, tyrant doubles down on their bullshit. And Jim Chapman is a tyrant. And I just calls it as I sees it. So I highly recommend check out the Midwesterners Green Charter Township for yourself. Again, a lot of great people voicing valid concerns. And it's a shame that our government forgot who they work for and they don't give a crap. And this is happening all across Michigan and the United States. But there's a reason why Governor Whitmer is trying to force solar and wind to bypass the townships. And that is because we do have a little bit of power in the townships, and they don't like it. And they don't want to hear what we have to say. They don't want us to stop the freaking wind and solar. They don't want us to try to stop Gotion and all these EV battery plants. They want us to shut up and just take it. Well, we're not doing that. And I thank God every day for more and more people rising up and trying to take back the power, because the power resides in the people in a valid government. So Big Rapids takes initial look at providing water, Gotion Battery Plant. Not going to get into this entire thing, but I wanted to show the hydrogeologist Katie Strower told the board that they did an evaluation of what additional water pumping would look like based on available data, and what the impact would be on the city's water supply and the surrounding environment based on available data. We got some numbers on the plant would actually do, from 400,000 to 800,000 gallons per day, in addition to what the city is currently running. She said the city's water system has 4 groundwater wells with a firm capacity to provide 3.6 million gallons per day, which currently provide an average of 1.5 million gallons per day. So the entire area, Big Rapids, whatever, the entire area is only using 1 million gallons, and this one facility is going to use close to the same. Close to 1 million gallons. It's with a proposed request of an additional 700,000 gallons per day, the average would increase to 1.75 million gallons per day, about 49% of available capacity. We found the well field has plenty of capacity to take on additional water usage. The question is, should it? And how long will that be? Other places have been drained. Based on that, we don't expect a lot of impact on private wells in the area. Of course, there is no way to know that for certain until we start pumping and monitoring things. I am so tired of hearing that. Oh, we can't figure out the environmental impact report until they buy the land. We can't figure out if it's going to harm us until we just pump it and do it. We just got to figure it out by poisoning our people, and then when they're poisoned, say, oops. That's what the government likes to do. Come down here, one element of the program is to delineate a wellhead protection area. The Gotion property is well outside the wellhead protection area, which suggests that any groundwater that is underneath the Gotion property is not likely to reach the well within a 10-year period. Not likely. And then what happens after that 10-year period? In order to serve the site with the water volumes we are looking at a 12-inch diameter water main that we would tap into at the fairgrounds, the closest area where there is an existing 12-inch diameter water main that we could connect to. Richard said the line would run down State Street to 18 Mile Road and then over to the Gotion site. He added that because of the ground contours and elevations, to service the site, they would need to look at adding a booster pump station near the airport drive. Additionally, they would need to have water tower on the site for storage of around 500,000 gallons of water for fire protection. We are looking at about 400,000 gallons phase 1, and that would be closer to 800,000 in phase 2. Overall, the well treatment and distribution system would be able to service that 800,000 of the existing plant. The total estimated cost for the project is $13.6 million, which is expected to be funded through the Strategic Site Readiness Program, state infrastructure. Again, $13 million, and they were given $50 million of taxpayer money, and only $13.6 million is accounted for. This is the Strategic Site Readiness Program. This money was given to the right place. $50 million to the right place, $13 million in updates. Again, where is the rest of that money going? Is it going to pay off all the people that got the deal in? I don't know. Who knows? CCP-tied battery plant pushed by Democrats to be built next to the third largest watershed in Michigan. Will reportedly consume twice the amount of water per day as the major bottling plant, Nestle. The approval of funds for the controversial CCP-connected battery plant company, Gotion, has been met with contempt by much of Green Township, Michigan, and the surrounding communities. In addition to opposing a Chinese company with sworn allegiance to the CCP, residents across Michigan are very concerned about the environmental impact on West Michigan residents. This is the Gateway Pundit. It is a right-wing news site, so keep that in mind. but that doesn't change the fact that the information I'm sharing with you is true. So, at the time, Michigan Citizens for Water Conservation President Peggy Kay said that Ice Mountain's draw had impacted the water table. This is what I wanted to share out of this. Even at 150 GPM, even though Nestle was pumping that, we've already seen the effects. There's dry headwaters. There's little feeder streams that are dried out. See, this is why I like looking everywhere, because I never would have thought to look at this angle specifically to try to figure out and contact Peggy Case. Like, it's good to find information anywhere you can, especially when there's quotes being thrown out, right? So look for quotes. Osceola Township Manager Tim Ladd agreed. You don't have to be a geologist or a hydrologist to see those water levels. The water light tables are lower today than what they were 2 years ago. The Midwestern noted that environmentalists have been silent every step of the way on the Gotion project. Some have even argued in favor of the battery plant, saying it will help promote green energy. It is abundantly clear that Democrats, who currently run all three branches of government in Michigan, only talk about the environment when it suits their political aspirations. Yes, it's a jab to the Democrats from the Republicans, but that's a legitimate jab from an independent that will jab both ways if it deserves it, okay? The truth is the truth. Thelen dodged concerns about the water consumption while pointing to the pump capacity instead, acting as if the enormous drain of water would have no impact on the water table. Thelen stands to profit off the project and is not a credible voice, nor does he have the ability to address environmental hazards without implicit bias. Thank you very much. Another environmental concern is that the site's proximity to the Muskegon River. Their proposed location borders two of the river's tributaries. Trebuchets? I've been playing too much Age of Empires too. The Muskegon River is the third largest watershed in the state and flows through multiple counties, bringing economic life to the towns it passes through. Absolutely. The site also borders 4 wells that provide the bulk of Big Rapids drinking water. And we don't know what would happen after 10 years. We don't really know what would happen at all, as we just read. Residents of Green Charter Township have repeatedly asked for information that might put them at ease, such as a third-party environmental impact study or specifics on what Gotion's plans are for shipping hazardous chemicals to the site and what processes will occur on site. But rather than provide practical information on Gotion's plans, Chuck Thelen calls legitimate concerns scare tactics, while dodging his responsibility to provide timely answers. Green Charter Township Supervisor Jim Chapman also prefers name-calling over fact-finding, since he has forgotten that he was hired to work for his local community, not against it. Residents have taken the first steps to recall him. Watch this local resident speak out against the purchase of land in mid-Michigan and the Communist Party-owned battery plant. I'm all for business, but not communist business. Residents fight back. Yes, the Midwestern. Okay. The Muskegon River is the third largest watershed in the state, and the proposed site is next to two. Oh, I already said that one. The site also borders 4 wells. Michigan had previously made national news over its Flint water crisis in 2014 and again in 2019, when high PFAS levels were found in Rockford, just north of Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is just south of Big Rapids, Michigan. Wolverine Worldwide, the largest company in the community, poisoned the water. Almost 800 homes in 7 separate contamination zones found PFAS in their drinking water. Some have concentrations more than 10,000 times the amount considered safe. Yeah, it's crazy. They're not even talking about, because I didn't even know it either, about Brenton Harbor. Or is it Benton Harbor? Sorry, guys. Is there an R or is there no R? But yeah, I didn't even know about that over there, that they have their water poisoned as well. And it's crazy that the only reason I know about it is because our government used Greek in an email instead of saying Flint, because Flint keyword, people are looking for that. If you use Greek, you can't look up the keywords. And so to get around it, that's what they used to cover up what's going on over there. So much shady stuff going on in Michigan and all over the United States. But again, this is just an example that I use on this channel with Michigan. You look in your own backyard and you'll see it too, unfortunately. But there's only one way to clean it up, and that is to look at your local townships, figure out what they're doing, shed light on the darkness, and that's how you clean up disease. One angry tweet took a shot at Chapman. I have expected Gotion to say a curse on your houses and walk away. It hasn't happened, and I appreciate it, says Green Township Supervisor Jim Chapman. Your recall is coming, Mr. Chapman. Michigan will never forget your lack of transparency, accountability, and respect for the citizens you serve. That was Heather Dow, Patriot Post Girl at Patriot Post Girl. Recommend following her too. Great journalism going on there. During the summer of 2022, FBI Director Christopher Wray and his M15 British counterpart Ken McCollum raised the alarm about national security threat China presents. Wray warned that Chinese use business ventures to influence local and state governments. The Chinese government poses an even more serious threat to Western businesses than even many sophisticated business people realize. He also said the Chinese embassy warned U.S. companies that if they want to keep doing business in China, they need to fight bills in our Congress that China doesn't like. Wray said every 12 hours the FBI opens a new counterintelligence investigation on China. Now, I don't trust the FBI at all. I'm hopefully going to talk tomorrow about the FBI centered kidnapping plot of Governor Whitmer here in Michigan, because the last 3 people that were being charged, all charges were dropped, which means the only people that were charged with anything were FBI agents for entrapment, which is a clear sign that our government is working against us using the FBI. So take with it a grain of salt. That's not to say that this FBI director isn't telling the truth here when it comes to China, because they absolutely use economic development. I've been reading Xi Jinping's speeches, and he's all about the Sustainable Development Goals, and economic development is how he's getting into different countries. And so there is some truth to what this FBI director is saying, but again, you can't trust them. They're warmongers, and so we need to be careful of that too. I don't want to go to war with any of them. However, I also don't want, to only have 3 pairs of clothing every year. So, U.S. National Counterintelligence and Security Center echoed this concern in a statement saying some of the goals of Chinese government influence operations in the United States are to expand support for People's Republic of China interests among state and local leaders, and to use these relationships to pressure Washington for policies friendlier to Beijing. Leaders at the U.S. state, local, tribal, and territorial levels risk being manipulated to support hidden Chinese government agendas. Absolutely. Again, war looks different this time around. It's an information war. It's what is it, 5G warfare? Yes, 5th generation warfare. So it's not going to be the same. China isn't going to invade using a military. That's not how they do things. They, again, use economic development. In an interview with Bridge, Chapman had complained about local resistance to the battery plant, describing those pushing for answers as closed-minded and uninformed. It's ironic, really. He intentionally kept people in the dark and is now calling them ignorant. Yeah. I mean, this article I think is really good, because that's absolutely true. It's ironic. We've wanted from the beginning is answers. We wanted transparency. We want to know exactly what this plant is and what chemicals you're bringing in and how. And you can't answer that. And the more lies and the more subterfuge, the more people were like, holy crap. Why would they be hiding all this? Is it because they knew we wouldn't like it because it's dangerous? Many involved in Gotion's planning process have also signed non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, and are ducking their responsibility to their constituents by hiding behind an agreement they should not have signed. People placed in office by their constituents are responsible for the transparent use of taxpayer dollars and should recognize their responsibility to answer questions truthfully and is foundational to their job. So I really hope that the individuals that are going for the Green Charter Township will do as they say they're going to do and listen to the people, actually be transparent, and support locals and what they want. And I think that there are definitely candidates in there that will. I'd like to talk to those candidates, so we'll see what's going to happen with that. But yeah, good luck to those that are going against this very corrupt board. I really hope that you, again, I wish you much luck in both winning and, leading the people as they need to be led. And so, yeah, good luck. So anyway, I'm not going to read this entire thing, but this is out of studiohumanz.com. And to the left, I selected a poster from the Soviet Union, a campaign to rebuild Soviet industry. The parallels are striking to what we are going through today. Translated, the post reads, "Communism means Soviets, plus the electrification of the whole country. Let us transform the USSR through socialist industrialization." That was in 1930. Electric vehicles also require a new electrification and are at the core of the left, the climate change cult, and the World Economic Forum. This individual is a local, and I actually found this over on Rumble. OZFest, Mecosta Environmental and Security Alliance in Gotion. There's an interview. I have not watched this yet. I just found it, so I will watch it as soon as possible and share any awesome tidbits if there is any. But if you want to watch it before I get to it, I will have this link in the description. I'm going to like it right off the bat because this person is doing good work, and he is the author of this and this website, this article and this website, and this was in January of this year. So this individual knows what's going on as well. This is Agenda 2030, and this is about property rights. Now we're getting into Marshall. This is the really long Detroit Free Press article that we need to read because it's crazy. It links Gotion in here as well. So Marshall and Gotion are linked by a lawyer. And I will have it linked down below, but this is behind a paywall. At least it was for me. So hopefully you can read it and it's not behind a paywall. At first, Rick Sadler didn't think the mailing was a huge deal. Sure, it went to residents all over Marshall this spring, and it did call him, his wife, and others disgruntled. But at least this one did not label him and others who oppose a massive local Ford development radical activists like a different flyer. Again, that's one of the things they do to gaslight and belittle us, right? They call us outsiders, radical activists, xenophobic. They call us every name in the book when what's really true is we're just worried people in love where we live. This mailing did include his photograph, though, with a big red X over his wife's face and his own. The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became and more worried, as you should be. I mean, very powerful people are posting up pictures with your X on your face. That's crazy. That's not just something you do to other people. To me, that's an attack on me and my family, said Sadler, 62, a manager at a Family Dollar in Battle Creek, who dotes on his two Yorkie poos, Sophie and Bella. I'm just a Joe Schmo. It's not fair because they've got basically unlimited pockets, and I think I have $10 in my wallet right now. It's exactly how we all feel. Is, again, a David and Goliath situation. The flyers and handouts are part of a larger campaign to shout down opponents of a $3.5 billion Ford electric vehicle battery project planned near Marshall, a small community located just a few miles east of Battle Creek. The development is arguably the crown jewel in Governor Whitmer's new economic development strategy, and it is set to receive more public subsidies than almost any other project in state history. The company already broke ground on the large site with plans for the facility to operate by 2026. However, some local residents oppose the project. Their reasons vary, but largely agree such a massive project will bring unwanted change to the community. Efforts by local residents to reverse land transfer, while unlikely, could derail the entire project, and they face pushback funded through shadowy organizations that are not required by law to provide very specific information about donors. I have to give it to the Detroit Free Press on this one. When I read it, I'm like, this is some good stuff. Detroit Free Press investigation into the fight over the project revealed connections to Democratic influencers, including Whitmer's campaign lawyer and his colleague, both of whom repeatedly represented the governor on controversial election issues in the past. In addition, a robocall effort blasting opponents of the Marshall site included a phone number used by Whitmer's re-election campaign, which still appeared on her political website as of publication of this report. A political organization used a portion of a $100,000 dark money contribution to pay for flyers. A video and other activities that encouraged Marshall residents to oppose a petition drive that could cripple the project, records show. The same organization used more of that money to hire the lawyers with Whitmer ties, shifting some of their strategy from a public relations battle to a legal fight. And again, we can't win. No, it's not that we can't win. It's an uphill battle. It's extremely difficult to win in both the public relations because the media has been captured and the legal battle because how many judges and prosecutors and how many people have been captured? We don't know. And so them going and bringing it to a legal battle when they have deep, deep pockets and we have just the strength in numbers, that's what we're going up against. It's a big battle we got, guys. In response to Free Press questions, Whitmer spokeswoman Stacey LaRoche would not say whether the governor or her campaign was involved with the dark money groups or advertisements, or explain how the governor's campaign phone number was used in a robocall. Instead, LaRoche emailed a statement earlier this month touting the Marshall Project. Thanks to Governor Whitmer's leadership, Marshall will be home to an iconic American company through Ford's Blue Oval Battery Park, creating 2,500 good-paying jobs, LaRoche said in a statement. They say the same line over and over. They don't give you any information. They just say these talking points as if they're a robot, as if they're bought and paid for, and they have a freaking script, and they have lines they can say off the script if they get certain questions, and that's it. This is possible because residents in Marshall supported the project, and as a result, the bipartisan Marshall City Council and Marshall Township voted to welcome this historic investment with open arms. As for Ford, spokesman T.R. Reed said the Dearborn automaker is absolutely not involved with the dark money groups or political committee in Marshall. Whitmer campaign connection is alarming. The money used in this case is considered dark because it comes from a group not required to disclose much information about the source of the funds or its leadership structure. Again, so much hidden stuff. If it was on the up and up, if it was all good, then they wouldn't be so secretive. Nick Pigeon, executive director of the nonprofit Michigan Campaign Finance Network, reviewed the Free Press findings. He noted dark money operations are common and frequently used to shield prominent people or companies from political scuttwork. I would say the connection to Whitmer's campaign lawyer is alarming and an example of behind-the-scenes maneuvering that campaign finance law allows for, Pigeon said in an email. There are too many connections to Democratic insiders to ignore in this case, but the degrees of separation campaign finance law allows obscures the true picture. Marshall Township residents attempted to recall a local trustee who supports the project. Elsewhere in the state, at least 2 other small-town officials face recall efforts due to the support of large development projects. And all 3 hired the same high-priced, Whitmer-connected lawyer to defend themselves. Guarantee you Jim Chapman is one. I don't know if it even says it, but I guarantee you Jim Chapman has hired the same high-priced Whitmer-connected lawyer. That is why he's doubled down. That is why he acts the way that he acts. He is a part of the establishment. He is completely sold out to them. He does not give a crap about the people that live in this area. Although it appears separate dark money groups with seemingly benign names, Clean Jobs for Michigan and Jobs for Michigan, are leading the charge against the locals opposed to the Ford project, state records show the 2 are actually the same organization. The incorporator is a Washington, D.C. lawyer who previously worked for political action committees supporting Hillary Clinton, Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, and other Democrats. The same entity also hired a public relations consultant who worked for Whitmer's re-election campaign, and its board is comprised of 3 people with ties to Michigan Democrats. The political committee that supports the Ford site, Marshall Citizens for Jobs and Opportunity, used some of the $100,000 donation to hire a well-known Democratic consulting firm to perform education and field services, according to records. During the height of the pandemic, the same firm landed the Whitmer administration in hot water after it received a no-bid contract, prompting inquiries from the legislature and the Michigan Attorney General. Right. No-bid contract. So the government just said, I choose you. Why? Why? I just choose you. Because they're all in bed together. Because that's her little... It's just... the amount of corruption and how they do it. It's so expertly done. It's like we are up against a mastermind of deception, if you know what I mean. The father, if you will, of lies. I've never heard of anything like that. The governor and her administration routinely champion their own initiatives, including criticizing opponents. But using dark money and mysterious groups is more common for attacking political rivals, not average taxpayers protesting something, experts said. Oh, so is this a shift? Is this a shift, or is this just the first time that we're actually understanding it is being used against average taxpayers? So what is it? I've never heard of anything like that. That's pretty wild, said Nathan Jensen, professor of government at the University of Texas at Austin, who's focused on economic development deals with public subsidies across the country. What a thing to be looking into. Although the coordinated pushback to the Amazon second headquarters deal in New York City is a recent example of communities sinking big projects, Jensen said it's highly unusual for these types of organizations to do the heavy lifting, advocating for these deals. It is a questionable strategy by a governor. You already have this ability to communicate a message. You wonder why they're not using this public strategy. And whether it's some sort of negative campaign that they don't want to be directly associated with, or a message they don't want to stand behind, Jensen said, elaborating on the idea Whitmer or her team are behind the effort. Right. I mean, that's not hard to understand. You say that you're for the people, and yet the people are saying no, and you are not only ignoring them, you're trying to bulldoze over them, go around them, and of course she doesn't want to be associated with that. She doesn't want to be known as someone who is actually against the people and doesn't give a shit about what you want. She has her own plans. Her and her cronies and her friends from Davos have their own plans, and they're going to implement them whether we like it or not. At least that's what they think. But again, that's why we need 10 million people. There's 14 million in Michigan. We need 10 million. I don't know, that seems crazy, but and until more people are affected, I think that we're going to have to continue to endure until we can finally get the majority. The majority. Maybe that's not 10 million, because obviously that'd be 7, but I'm going to be hopeful and say we can get 10 million Michiganders to wake up and say, no, we don't want your damn plans. I have faith we can do it. While Whitmer appeared with Ford executives to announce the deal and helped shepherd subsidies through the legislature, she has not visited Marshall to hear from the community after details emerged about the project. LaRoche did not answer questions about why the governor has not visited Marshall for the project or whether she plans to do so in the future. Jim Durian, leader of the local economic development agency that helped secure the Ford project, said his organization had no part in the advertisements or the dark money groups. He said opponents of the development engaged in threats and harassment instead of civil dialogue, something Ford spokesman Reed also mentioned. In Marshall, the ads created a picture of outside agitators and disgruntled residents trying to foment dissent in a tight-knit community. It's the same thing in Big Rapids. Same exact thing. This is how dark money groups are being used against us, guys. In reality, longtime local residents who supported a petition to potentially end the Ford deal said even if the tone of the campaign did not surprise them, they felt attacked. And right, they should. We are being attacked. Glenn Kowalski, a self-described pretty simple guy who's taken on a leadership role in coordinating opposition to the development, also discussed the Free Press findings. He said he feels confident that Whitmer or her allies are involved in the campaign against those who dislike the Ford project. The retired engineer, who has lived in Marshall Township for the past 37 years, says his experience fighting the Ford project opened his eyes to the darker side of politics. I'm right there with you. I had no idea just how dark and shady this stuff really was. until I started going to Green Charter Township board meetings. And the first board meeting I ever went was the Big Rapids Township board meeting to try to figure out what the hell was going on with Gotion. And that was the beginning of this year. So I'm new to all this, but I'm not surprised. And, well, I guess I am. I didn't realize it would be in Green Charter Township. It's the governor from the standpoint of the political process for sure, whether that's a direct connection or if it's indirect through these business elements that are accomplishing the mission, Kowalski said. If I think about the emotional part, I think it makes most of us both angry and also, I don't want to say hopeless, but from the standpoint that things are completely out of our control and that the opposition is massive. Absolutely. I don't want to say hopeless because it's not, but it sure is difficult some days to it's like, it seems like everything is against us. Chris Bowman and his family have lived in Marshall area for years, including several in Marshall Township directly across the Kalamazoo River from the planned development site. Recently, he said his son brought him an ad he'd seen on YouTube championing the site. Mike Buss, who lives down the street from Bowman, saw a separate ad on social media. He saved it because he thought it was so funny that he and others who disapproved of the site would be labeled radicals. They're trying to frame the opposition as some sort of outside conspiracy theorists, said Bowman, who dislikes the site and plans to move if the project comes to fruition. Right. It's funny to be called radicals until it's not. Until it's not. It's really dangerous what they're doing, because calling us radicals is just one step closer to calling us terrorists, even though this is our home. The lawyers and other projects, providing billions of tax dollars to entice business relocation or growth, is a top priority for the governor in her second term. Since re-election, Whitmer and the Michigan legislature allocated roughly $4 billion to these deals, generally predicated on companies spending lots of money in a community and creating new jobs. That includes roughly $1.7 billion in state and local subsidies for the large Ford-related facility just outside Marshall. Gotion Inc., a Chinese manufacturer, agreed to invest $2.4 billion, but as we just saw, $2.4 billion and they're getting $8 billion. Whitmer and state economic development officials say projects they pursue are supported by local communities. So there you go. That's why they would want to hide, because they're sitting there saying that we support it. She's lying. We don't support it. She doesn't want people to know that we don't support it. She'd rather say we're radicals, outsiders, crazy conspiracy theorists than, again, people with legitimate concerns. In Marshall Township, the Ford project is slated for land in the township, not Marshall proper. Green Charter Township and Eagle Township, an array of vocal and active neighbors, oppose the deals for a variety of reasons. All three communities, the opposition manifested in separate pushes to oust local elected leaders. In the Marshall area, local residents also pursued a ballot initiative and filed a lawsuit. In each of those cases, the township officers facing potential recall turned to at least two lawyers, Chris Tribalcock and Vincent Sallin. These two individuals work for Clark Hill, a firm with more than 700 lawyers in Michigan and across the country. While the firm routinely represents local governments, Tribalcock repeatedly worked for the same high-profile client, Whitmer. So Whitmer's lawyer is working for Jim Chapman? When Whitmer faced scrutiny in 2021 over a private jet she took to Florida at the height of the COVID-19 restrictions to visit her dad who was sick, when we could not see our elderly, our family members, we couldn't see them. They were stuck behind a glass wall, but she could go to Florida and be just fine. This individual represented the governor and her campaign. Oh. Wow. So this lawyer is a very good liar and has it just like the guy in Liar Liar, doesn't give a shit. Will lie, will do anything to win. He also represented a secretive nonprofit affiliated with the governor that initially sought to cover the cost of the flight. Yeah, you can't make this crap up, man. He also represented a series of Whitmer-aligned initiatives, including an organization created to fight conservative efforts to gather signatures for a petition aimed at stripping her of some executive powers. These lawyers are not cheap, although neither would tell the Free Press their hourly rates. A 2021 bid Clark Hill submitted to represent a city suggested lawyers with similar titles cost at least $250 to $350 an hour. That's more than I thought. I heard $220 an hour, but $250 to $350 an hour. A Marshall Township trustee earns $3,636 annually, plus $60 for any special meetings, according to the clerk. The Eagle Township supervisor makes $18,576 per year, according to the clerk's office. In January, the Green Charter Township Board voted to pay a supervisor a salary of $22,257 from the general fund. Green Charter Township, with like 3,000 people, is getting $22,000. What the hell is going on? These two lawyers' work in Marshall goes beyond representing a Marshall Township trustee. They also represent the political committee that recently received $100,000 as part of the campaign to support the Ford project. Treb also represents the group in a lawsuit against the local residents who oppose the plant, court records show. In a statement, he declined to say whether anyone affiliated with Whitmer, Ford, or others asked him to represent the officials or the Marshall Political Committee. He also would not say who's paying for his services. The government, taxpayers. Taxpayers are paying for the lawyers that are going after the taxpayers. We're paying, again, for our own enslavement. We're paying for the people that are going after us. It drives me nuts. I have always been proud to represent local elected officials who are subject to unwarranted political attacks simply for standing up and doing what's right for their constituents and communities, especially when those doing the attacking refuse to follow the law, he said last week in the emailed statement. Our retention, who's not following the law, Jim Chapman? Our retention of clients is subject to the policies of our firm and rules allegedly. Sorry, Jim Chapman allegedly. Our retention of clients is subject to the policies of our firm and rules of professional conduct governing all attorneys. We strictly follow these in all cases. He also represented the township supervisor in Eagle Township, court records show. Both Salin and Treblecock represent the Green Charter Township supervisor according to court records. Both of them, two lawyers, two corrupt lawyers, working for someone who makes $22,000 a year from the Green Charter Township folk. It's laugh or cry. I'm not, like, obviously, it's so frustrating beyond belief that I would have tears in my eyes if I would allow it. It's like, I can't believe this is happening right in our backyard. The Eagle Township supervisor and Marshall Township trustee did not return requests for comment. Green Charter Township supervisor Jim Chapman declined to say how he's paying for his lawyers. He said he learned of their expertise from conversations with friends, but declined to name any of them. Yeah, with his friends. You just can't get more corrupt than Chapman. It's crazy. Whatever I'm doing and how I'm paying for it is my business. No, it's not, Chapman said. That's what Chapman said. Whatever I'm doing and how I'm paying for it is my business. No, you're supposed to be working for the frickin' people of Green Charter Township. Adding, if he's paying for lawyers with campaign funds, he'll include the expenditure in his campaign filings. The organization opposing the Ford development has its own relatively prominent attorney. Robbie Dube works for a firm out of Minnesota, known for helping locals in North Dakota scuttle a potentially huge development in their community, Gotion. Gotion was trying to go to North Dakota. He got it to stop. He helped the people of Minnesota. Thank you for coming over here to help us. Dube also represents a comparable group in Mecosta County that opposes the Gotion facility near Big Rapids. On Wednesday, Republican turned Democratic operative Jeff Timmer publicly released documents showing a staff member for Senate Minority Leader Eric Nesbitt from Porter Township is helping a separate committee working to recall Chapman. Nesbitt and many other Republicans have openly criticized the Gotion project for months. That criticism runs from unsubstantiated allegations of meddling by China and environmental concerns to frustration over the size of the public subsidy for the project. Right, which is another reason why whenever they say outsiders, when you can't call any Michigander an outsider because it's our taxpayer dollars that is paying for all of this crap. Billions of dollars. So there is no such thing as an outsider if they're a Michigander. They sound innocuous. Marshall Citizens for Jobs and Opportunity and Jobs for Michigan, Clean Jobs for Michigan. Trebilcock. But they're all relatively newly created organizations working in coordination while relying on lax regulations that enable spending unlimited sums of dark money to influence politics at the local and state level. They're all relatively newly created organizations. Marshall Citizens for Jobs and Opportunity paid for the flyer with a big red X and a separate one that called local residents radical activists. It also paid for at least one television advertisement that blasts radical extremists and special interests, according to a recording obtained by the Free Press. Aaron McKean, legal counsel for the National Nonprofit Campaign Legal Center, said this is a classic example of wealthy special interests shielding their identities using a, help me out there, Celtic Mom 88. You know what? I just need to do this. I'm probably going to feel like an idiot once it's said out loud. Because it's probably a word I've seen or said. Yeah, menagerie. Okay. And just to be clear, a menagerie is a place where animals are kept or a collection of wild or foreign animals kept. That can't be that. A varied mixture. There we go. That's got to be what they're talking about. A varied mixture. It's almost a stereotypical story at this point, said McKean, the campaign finance expert. What we've also seen is the massive increase in the types of groups named Americans for America or Americans for Apple Pie. Everyone wants good jobs in their community. That is part of the whole story. Obscuring where that money comes from. That is it. In Marshall, residents who oppose the Ford site tried to gather signatures for a petition to force a citywide vote on a local zoning decision that provided hundreds of acres for the project. Unfortunately, we have news and the judge threw it out, but they're still going to court. Excuse me. They hope to overturn that decision and potentially derail or change the Ford development. Unfortunately, like I said, let's see. Judge dismisses complaint against Marshall Plant, allows construction. This is from 2 days ago. The fight continues. Judge Moretti decided Thursday that the rezoning ordinance correctly included an appropriation of money, meaning voters would not be able to stop construction with a referendum. Obviously, we're disappointed in the judge's ruling, Dube said, and respectfully, we believe he's wrong in the law. We believe the court is wrong. Dube tells Fox 17 the group filed a new complaint, opening the door for defendants Marshall Area Economic Development Alliance and the city to answer new claims. So they're still fighting there. It's unfortunate that got thrown out, but again, we're fighting Goliath. Who knows why they threw it out, really? You know, backdoor deals we don't know about. It's unfortunate. You can't trust them. We are very proud of the work in our community that led to this very rare opportunity to bring good jobs to the area, Ball said. In July, Marshall Citizens for Jobs Opportunity reported receiving $100,000 for Clean Jobs for Michigan, its only contribution. In comparison, the group that opposes the Ford development has raised about $29,000. Most of the donations are small contributions from Marshall area residents. Yeah, it's like, again, I don't like Tudor-Dixon, but Whitmer had 8 times more campaign finances than Tudor-Dixon. Like, how do you fight against that? $100,000 from one person. It's just, boop, a little drop in the bucket for the billionaires and millionaires that are backing the central government that is pushing this shit. $29,000 is all we could scrape up because the people have been pillaged. The people we don't have money. The last 3 years was the greatest wealth transfer in history. And so all of the people that are against it, we scraped up 29,000. And that is a lot for us, but it's nothing compared to who we're fighting. Nothing. I mean, Chapman got $500,000, which again is nothing, but for that township is so much. It's just, they did receive $5,000 from a local nonprofit run by Klawowski and 2 other residents, records show. While this type of nonprofit is typically not allowed to make political contributions, there are exceptions under Michigan campaign finance law and IRS rules for donations to a committee created to support or oppose a ballot initiative. Clean Jobs for Michigan and Jobs for Michigan have separate websites with slightly different messages. However, both are registered to the same P.O. box in Jackson, and state business records show the groups are the same company, organized by Washington, D.C. Attorney Jim Lamb. Lamb, a longtime Democratic supporter, referred comment to Mario Mauro. Mauro is a Detroit political consultant who worked for both former governors Rick Schneider and a Republican, and Jennifer Granholm, a Democrat. What does this tell you? What does this tell you? These people are friends. This governor said, "Hey man, I got a really good lawyer for you, Granholm." Because, again, they're friends. This is the uniparty that we're up against. Republicans and Democrats be damned. We need to stop with the left versus right crap, because really, this is honestly the establishment versus the anti-establishment. That's where we are right now. More recently, Whitmer's re-election campaign paid Mauro's firm $75,000 in 2021, according to state records. Mauro said that there are 3 members of the Clean Jobs for Michigan board: Rudy Hobbs, Stephen Purchase, and Price Dobernick. Hobbs is a former Democratic state lawmaker. Purchase is a spokesman for a union, and Dobernick is a leader for a separate union. Both unions endorsed Whitmer in the past. Mauro did not answer a question about whether Whitmer or entities with which she has ties had a hand in founding the organizations, nor did he provide detailed information about the source of the $100,000 provided to the Marshall Committee. We will comply with all reporting requirements as required by law when these reports are due. Basically, just say it. We ain't gonna tell you. We don't work for you. We don't care what you want. The political committee reported sending a little more than $32,000. About $20,000 of that went to K2K Consulting, a Grand Rapids-based agency with deep ties to Michigan Democrats. In early 2020, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services awarded a no-bid contract for contact tracing related to fighting COVID-19 to the same company. Friends in high places, Celtic Mom says, and yeah, friends in high places. That's what these townships have. And again, it blows my mind that such a small township would be captured. So you gotta look. The head of K2K Consulting, Mike Coalhouse, did not return a voicemail seeking comment. A fourth organization, Marshall Citizens for Jobs in Progress, did not file campaign finance reports at the state or local level and does not appear to have a website. However, local residents received robocalls, purportedly from the organization, that advocated for the Ford project. After roughly 30 seconds of asking people not to sign petition opposing the project, the message indicates it's paid for by Marshall Citizens for Jobs in Progress, according to a copy obtained by the Free Press. After that, it lists the phone number. The Whitmer campaign used the same phone number to file for re-election. It remains on her campaign website. The Free Press repeatedly called the number and left messages, but none were returned. I have to say thank you to Dave Boucher. That was a great article. Thank you again. This is another one that is a report from CapCon, Michigan Capital Confidential, which is a libertarian site that's trying to hold the government accountable. I think for the most part, it's just sharing the same stuff. I will leave it down below, though, because, again, you never know what little tidbit will be available that you might not have known about. Now we come over here, and I wanted to show McCarthy completes construction of Michigan's largest solar farm in Shiawassee County, Michigan. I mean, this is awful. Now, I didn't realize that this was already happening in Shiawassee. The construction in 3 phases, 1,200 acres, includes nearly 800,000 bifacial solar modules. And this is what they want to put wherever they want to put it. This is what they're trying to bypass the townships for. So the following is an MTA statement in response to Governor Whitmer's comments on August 30th and pending legislation on moving renewable energy sitting from local communities to the Michigan Public Service Commission. This is Michigan Townships Association. Utility scale renewable energy sitting can be an incredibly contentious topic in communities across the state. But the answer is not to take away local governments and residents' say about issues and decisions that have very real, lasting, and potentially dramatic impacts for their community. Attempts to strip away local authority are becoming more and more common. No one knows a community and its wants and needs better than residents and the local officials they elect to represent and serve them. We understand the need and the desire for renewable energy. Many townships across the state are already home to renewable energy facilities by their choice. We will work to ensure that communities and Michiganders keep their voice on these important local decisions. So thank you to the Michigan Township Association. This is the company that put in the solar panels. And it's just, this is supposed to be, again, to save the planet and biodiversity and life itself. And yet no life can exist when these solar panels are existing in it. You know, look at this. This would be so beautiful if not for this man-made shit that's in the way. Look at that. This is almost blacking the sunset. This one. Is this supposed to be beautiful? This reminds me of something Sauron would have in Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's awful. This is awful. This is not green, and you can never convince me such because I can see with my own eyes it's not green. It's a bunch of man-made shit in the middle of a field that could have had plants that we can eat. Okay? We just heard earlier that starvation is going to be a huge issue because they're taking away nitrogen, and again, it's completely unnecessary. This is all self-inflicted wounds. Michigan Democrats push carbon neutral energy goal back 5 years to 2040. This just came out September 14th. Democratic lawmakers pushing bills that aim to get Michigan utilities off fossil fuels say they're extending the proposed deadline by 5 years from 2035 to 2040. Again, who made this plan? I asked Whitmer on Twitter, X, but she didn't answer, of course. Instead, during a Senate Energy and Environment Committee hearing Thursday, lawmakers were originally scheduled to take testimony on 3 bills tied to the energy overhaul, including a centerpiece bill calling for utilities to achieve 100% carbon-free energy by 2035. But instead, they deferred testimony on 2 bills, the SB 271 and SB 273, pending new language sponsors said is forthcoming. Pending new language sponsors said is forthcoming. Among the changes to the carbon-free energy bill sponsored by Erica Geese of Taylor is a new deadline of 2040. This is a giant undertaking, Geese acknowledged while giving an overview of the forthcoming changes. Lawmakers must do everything we can to protect our climate, she said, but also ensure it's not done in a way that would negatively impact reliability. Some critics of the energy legislation have argued moving too fast away from fossil fuels would leave Michigan vulnerable to power outages by forcing utilities to swap consistent power from natural gas for intermittent wind and solar resources. Again, natural gas, everybody. Why is natural gas unsustainable? Because it's too available. It makes it too cheap. And we're supposed to own nothing and be happy about it. Proponents contend those concerns can be alleviated with investments in batteries to store power for when the sun isn't shining or wind isn't blowing. The early version of Democratic bill would also include nuclear energy among the acceptable mix of carbon-free sources. A separate bill to ramp up requirements for utilities to prioritize energy efficiency, sponsored by Sam Singh of East Lansing, is also being amended with softer requirements. So lawmakers pulled those two bills from the agenda, they managed to vote on a third that would codify an existing state rule allowing farmers to rent their land for solar arrays while staying enrolled in the state's farmland preservation program. This bill will probably be the least complicated. Yeah. Some environmental groups argue the bill doesn't go far enough. One coalition sent a letter earlier this month to Whitmer and Democratic legislative leaders urging them to adopt a standard that allows only wind, solar, small-scale hydropower, and geothermal energy. We have significant concern over the use of natural gas, hydrogen, carbon capture and storage, nuclear power, biomass, waste-to-energy, landfill gas, and biofuels for the dangers they pose to disenfranchised communities. It's so funny that they're saying that it's for the disenfranchised or poorer communities, and yet when we say as a poorer community that we don't want something, they say, but this is for your own good. We're beating you up for your own good. Don't you just love it? Geis said under the draft bill, utilities would be allowed to achieve at least part of the carbon-free requirement through carbon capture or offset mechanism rather than by obtaining all their power from carbon-free sources. The forthcoming version will also require utilities to acquire 2,500 megawatts of storage by 2030. Energy storage, such as batteries, is seen as crucial to maintaining reliable energy on a grid powered by intermittent resources like wind and sun. Singh contends Michigan stands to lose out on federal investments in clean energy if it doesn't aggressively support an energy transition. And Geis argued that in a worsening climate crisis that is projected to cost U.S. taxpayers $2 trillion annually by century's end, the cost of inertia outstrips the cost of climate action. No, climate action is going to cost taxpayers like $15 trillion. So, $2 trillion, $15 trillion. Again, where are all these projections coming in? Garbage in, garbage out, right? How do you know? Governor Gretchen Whitmer, whose 2022 climate plan called for phasing out coal power plants by 2030 and achieving economy-wide carbon neutrality by 2050, has broadly endorsed the plan but avoided talk of timelines. All the energy we produce will be from wind, solar, or other common sense sources, Whitmer said in her What's Next speech last month. Common sense. Common sense to who? That is the question. All right, I have one more for you, and I will have to share the rest tomorrow, hopefully. But I do have to record and live stream, hopefully, the MEDC tomorrow at 10 a.m. So I'm hopefully going to be able to do a video as well as that, but we'll see. The Whitmer is pushing plan to put solar wind project under state control. This came out September 13th, and I just wanted to wait a minute. I'm going to give this information first. These are all the bills you need to watch out for, okay? A clean and just energy future. HB 4760 and SB 272, which would expand the MPSC's authority to ensure that utilities prioritize affordability, public health, and climate change. HB 4839 and HB 4840, which would establish rebates for solar and battery storage systems that prioritize low and middle income households and require utilities to aggregate these systems into the grid. Again, we need to, I'm going to as well, but we need more muckrakers on this one because this is a lot to go through, and we need to figure out what the hell they have, what kind of pork is in all this stuff. SB 152, SB 153, and HB 4464, which would facilitate the creation of community solar projects and ensure that benefits are channeled to low-income residents. SB 362 and 363, which would remove Michigan's cap on distributed solar generation and implement net metering. What the hell is net metering? It doesn't sound good. I don't like it. So I wanted to show those, and I'll have that link down below. And back to this. So the Michigan legislature is working on a package of bills that would take away local zoning control for commercial wind and solar projects and transfer it to the Michigan Public Service Commission, MPSC. Those are the bills I believe I just shared with you. During her recent What's Next address, there might be more bills. That's why I said I believe. There might be even more coming out. And if there is, I'll let you know. During her recent What's Next address, Governor Gretchen Whitmer indicated she supported transferring renewable energy, citing to the state and plans to work with lawmakers on the issue. Let's enact 100% clean energy standard for Michigan, she said in her address. To hit our clean energy goals, the Michigan Public Service Commission needs more tools. No, needs more power. That's what she should have said. That's the truth. They need more power. The House and Senate are poised to deliberate and vote on bills to shift siting control to the state this fall. Michigan Farm Bureau opposes any actions that would eliminate local control on siting for commercial renewable energy projects, according to MFB Legislative Counsel Andrew Ramesh. There are 2 links here. I highly recommend you read those. Michigan Farm Bureau supports local siting for renewable projects through member-driven grassroots policy, encouraging farmers and county farm bureaus to work with local governments to establish zoning for renewable energy. Vermeesh said, adding that the organization's policies call for members becoming active in land use zoning, such as meeting with local officials. Further, MFB policy supports the current township government system, which makes Michigan a home rule state that provides local control to local units of government regarding zoning. State-level decision-making from unelected officials can lead to one-size-fits-all regulations that may not adequately address the diversity of local conditions and preferences across different townships, said Matt Kapp, MFB land use and local government specialist. No one knows a community better than its own residents, who serve as local officials. These individuals have a deep understanding of their unique geographic landscape, allowing them to assess suitable specific locations for solar projects in ways that state-level authorities may not fully understand, I think is what it meant. Kapp noted that local officials are directly accountable to their constituents and the community they serve, making them more transparent and responsive in their decision-making process. There are 1,240 townships in Michigan. What works well for one township may not work well for another. Absolutely. If a township decides that they want solar or wind, then that's on their township. But to bypass the township is obviously, it goes against the Constitution. It goes against what the Constitution was for. But we are entering a post-Constitution government, or we already have entered a post-constitutional government. They don't care about the Constitution that they swore to protect. So we need to come to grips with that and figure out what we want to do about it. That's where we're at. Thank you guys for hanging out. I'm hopefully going to talk this week about the FBI charges with the Whitmer case and her kidnapping case. And I also want to talk about the strike, because that obviously is a big deal for the battery plants here in Michigan. I just didn't have enough time to talk about it today, but it's really important that we understand what's going on with the strike. So hopefully I can get to that this week. Thank you guys for hanging out. I will see you tomorrow to watch the MEDC spend our money at 10 a.m. Okay? Thank you guys for hanging out, and I will see you tomorrow.